So good morning and welcome to the IoT track. Today we have Jennifer Sanders with us, and we're going to be talking about public-private partnerships and how we are using the PPPs, as they're better known in the community, to be able to drive IoT adoption within smart cities. And so honored today to have Jennifer with us. I'll let her give her introduction here in just a second.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you all for being here this morning. I know there's thousands and thousands of sessions, so we appreciate you coming over here. I'm Jennifer Sanders. I'm the co-founder and executive director of the Dallas Innovation Alliance. For those of you that may not be familiar with who we are, we're a 501c3 public-private partnership that was founded to help support the design and execution of a smart city strategy for Dallas. We were founded in 2015. We take a multi-phase approach, and our first phase you're actually sitting in. So we created a living lab here on Market Street where we have 9 active smart city projects that we're testing not only individually, so we know, hey, this much energy was saved, but we look at how do those projects impact each other from a cross-project process. So that's where the data and the analytics become so critical. We currently have 30 partner organizations, and we're working with over 20 different departments of the city. So it's a very broad and diverse coalition, and it just continues to show us that it really, truly takes a village to be able to build a smart city.
That's great. So the format today is obviously fireside chat. For everybody that's in the back, if you want to take your attention over to the whiteboard that's on the right of the stage, the hashtags are there for you, the hashtags as well as the handle for Dallas Startup Week. So any pictures that you take, if you wouldn't mind, go ahead and tag the session, and that way we'll make sure to retweet them for you and like them as well to get you some exposure for being here in the audience. So with that, we've got a small audience today, which is good because that keeps it interactive for us, which is obviously more beneficial to you. So I'll start out with just a couple of questions, because there's a lot of people, just checking different hashtags and looking at what's trending and seeing how many different tweets have been tweeted about a certain, a handle or a hashtag. It's always interesting to me to see the number of acronyms that get a hashtag eventually, IoT and PPP being one of them, which is why we're here today. So I know that there's a lot of confusion around what a PPP is, what they do. We kind of elaborated a little bit during your introduction, but really kind of walk us through Dallas Innovation Alliance, and whenever you guys formed as what you did, how you became a partner to the city, what was the purpose, and kind of what's the meaning behind a public-private partnership? What is it really that drives that?
Absolutely. So this all started in early 2015 with a conversation with Mayor Rollins, where my co-founder Trey Bowles just went in and felt very strongly that Dallas could be on the front end of this smart cities thing, right? That was starting to become this concept that was spreading like wildfire. And the whole idea was, it's not a fork in the road, but you're going to hit a wall. Every city's going to have to approach smart cities, and to be 3 years, 5 years, 10 years ahead of the curve to where infrastructure is crumbling, for example, and some of it is. But when you hit that point where you have to deal with these problems that are happening in a city that's growing as fast as Dallas, if you're ahead of the curve, you can reap tremendous benefits from that. It saves costs down the road if you get ahead of it. And so Mayor Rollins was very supportive of this, and he essentially said, I dig it, report back and tell me how we get it done. So that was, okay, we'll report out. So we started working with the city manager and these assistant city managers, as well as the chief information officer, Bill Finch, who has been the reason this has happened. Bill Finch has been instrumental in us getting all of this done. So after some conversations, we really came to the conclusion that a freestanding organization was the best way to get started here, recognizing that a freestanding organization working with best minds, bringing everybody to the table and aligning from the inset was critical. But not only that, a freestanding organization can operate independently and more quickly. You don't have to go through procurement. We're able to test things quickly. The way we kind of describe DIA in our function is we're kind of the R&D arm for these initiatives. So corporations have R&D centers, universities have R&D labs. Cities should have the ability to test these technologies before you go ahead and write a scaled RFP and don't really know what you need. Procurement is a hot topic and how that needs to be. How many of y'all are from the public sector? All right, how about private sector? Startups specifically? Okay. How many of you have gone through the RFP process with the city? Yeah, so you understand that this is onerous, and especially for early stage companies, the process is so massive that from a bandwidth perspective, it's hard for startups to even get into that swing, and that's something that we're really working alongside other cities to understand what are possible ways to engage the startup community in an official capacity with cities. San Antonio is doing a really good job of that. If y'all want to look into kind of the direct partnership they have with their startup community and how they start to integrate and give smaller scale contracts to startups. I know I'm going on a tangent, but these are some of the things we think about in terms of how can we contribute to looking at different models and different processes as we go through this. So we decided to form a freestanding partnership. We launched in 2015. We were lucky enough to launch at the White House as part of President Obama's Smart Cities initiative, where that DOT Smart Cities Challenge grant was announced, and there were $168 million of grants put forward at that time. So the joke is kind of, if you launch at the White House, you're good to go. You get a logo, you build a website, launch at the White House, beautiful. Let's get started. And so we work with organizations across sectors. The Dallas Regional Chamber, Downtown Dallas Inc., DART, TREC, we're all some of our founding partners from the civic side. We work with the Texas Research Alliance, which works with all of the regional universities from a research capacity. And we work with AT&T, Cisco, Toyota just joined us as some of our lead partners. And the whole idea was, how do we bring to bear all of these folks that either are tremendously invested in the city's success and can tell us what they need and what their perceptions are? How can we work with corporations that have already built this across the world so we have that best practices standpoint to get us started? And how can we work and pull in the entrepreneurial community and be able to have startups involved? So when we think about the Living Lab, it's a mix of global corporations, and it's also a mix of local startups that are participating in this lab. But what we know ultimately is that we are the fastest to market smart city project in the country. We went from developing the use cases to launching in 10 months, and most cities it takes 3 to 5 years to get something like this done. So we really believe that this model to start is a highly successful and beneficial way to look at this. Other cities are looking at building organizations like this so that they can move quick. The whole goal, though, is we provide data and results and a better understanding of what works and what doesn't to the city, which would allow them hopefully to pick up and scale projects quickly and know what they need from the inset.
No, that's excellent. So I saw a couple of hands back in here that said they're with startups, and then I saw a couple of facial expressions whenever she asked a question about RFP with the city. So coming from a carrier myself, we've obviously had a lot of interactions with different governments of different sizes. And to hear you say 10 months to market, I'm sitting here going, that's like crazy, because that's extremely fast-paced whenever you're dealing with a government agency because of budgets and things like that. So immediately what comes to mind, whenever we have entrepreneurs within our city that have startups and they want to interface with government officials or government entities of any sort, my recommendation, and correct me here if I'm wrong, because I kind of want to lead into this, is utilization of someone that already has an existing PPP in place that can also give you the exposure that you need if you're best of breed. Now, obviously, they could potentially be a gatekeeper, but at the same time, they've got the opportunity to be an exposure opportunity too. And so I would say working with an organization like yours or others within the state or in other cities, is that a fair assumption to say that you could actually help them get to where they need to go faster?
I think that's definitely the hope. And the whole idea of building a living lab was how do we get the infrastructure in place that will make it easier for startups to test. If you're in a place where you need proof of concept, you need to look at commercialization and kind of getting to that level. We want to provide an opportunity and an environment, whether it's through access to fiber, access to Wi-Fi, access to having already changed over the light poles to intelligent. And so my hope is that, if you have a sensor, if you have something in IoT that you want to test, that we can help put that in the living lab. So that's what we're really hoping to come out of this from that perspective. And again, I think if the company's kind of use case is something that we've kind of identified as a priority and we can fold that in, that's what we want to do, that's where we want to get. Our smart parking vendor is ParkHub, they're a local company. EV Systems is doing our pedestrian tracking beacons, and we want to continue to build that ecosystem.
That's excellent. So there were a couple of people in here that are with the city or with government, just in that capacity, but then there's also several people that are in startups or in the entrepreneurial space. So whenever we look at the labs and we think about, well, their partners, you mentioned that you have, what is it, 30 partners? Okay, so with 30 partners, that can be intimidating to somebody that's just beginning to work in a project. So whenever you think about the lab, you might see on the website or in literature other places that you're partnered with these particular companies, but it doesn't mean that you discredit the other ones. It's just those might be a sponsorship. So specifically to the startups, because that's kind of where my heart's near and dear to startups and entrepreneurs is how do they overcome that fear? Well, I might as well not even apply or might as well not even make an introduction because they're already partnered with X, Y, and Z, whoever that might be. So kind of walk us through what is that process to partner with DIA or other organizations like yours?
So, I mean, it starts with a conversation, obviously, right? And looking at where that fit may come. And I'll tell you that there are some other companies that have gotten involved. We have an active STEM committee and data committee, and we're launching a quality of life committee next month. But looking at projects that we're doing also through those committees and pulling in, early stage or later stage companies to help implement those and other pilot opportunities. So we're looking at lots of different ways to get involved in lots of different projects that will happen, whether it's in the living lab or whether it happens somewhere else. So the hope is that we can implement, but it starts with a conversation. It looks at, is this something that's, so I'll just add to, we're a really lean organization. I was the only full-time employee until 4 weeks ago. And so part of the limit for me is just in bandwidth. So if you have met with me and stuff dropped off, please don't take it personally. My bandwidth can be somewhat limited. But it really starts with where's the fit? Is it something we can look at short term? Is it something that we need to revisit in 3 to 6 months? Because that's when we think we'll be turning focus to the area or the sector that company's in. But then we do an SOW, we look at scope, we pull in the existing partners that are necessary for an integration. So AT&T is our connectivity partner, so we look at are you currently able to utilize that if that's the way to go? What kind of infrastructure do you need to be able to implement? So, for example, for Park Hub is a great example of, some of their technology includes the pucks, and so working with the city to make sure, and the private lot owners to make sure, are they comfortable with that? What's the process and permitting if necessary? So we kind of walk through that process together, which I think has also been helpful to some of the companies we work with in terms of if they haven't worked with the public sector, what is that public right-of-way? Permitting look like? How do you walk through that? So the goal is that everybody's learning and that this is an opportunity for that. But really it just starts with a conversation and what time frame could we pull folks in? Does that make sense?
No, absolutely. So whenever you said that you're the only employee until 4 weeks ago, so we can kind of frame this up for you real quick. Do you allow volunteership? Okay, so for anybody that's in the startup world, the easiest and best way that I would ever say personally that I've seen work is if you want to get into somewhere, serve your way there. So it's giving of your time and your resources that also help leverage from both parties. So it becomes a partnership, it's a two-way street. It's not just one person doing something for one person, it's both of you working together. So are you doing anything where you're accepting volunteers for specific positions, or do you have anything like that open?
Absolutely, we are grateful for that. And I should be clear too, I'm not doing everything myself, obviously. There's a lot of support from partners, but from a human capital perspective, I don't want to misrepresent that. But absolutely, there is always a need for volunteers skilled or helping clean up after events, because I'll be here doing that, and things like that. So if you want to be involved, and the website has a volunteer form also, where you can kind of check the areas that you're most interested in, anything from marketing to grant making to looking at technical support. So if you have the ability to kind of cross-check architecture from that perspective, that's also something that's helpful for us to get another set of eyes on as we move through the process. But absolutely, we are supportive and grateful for that as well.
So now for all the outlying cities outside of Dallas, obviously there's a focus for smart taxes just in general. So each individual city kind of has something in play at least now, whether they're further along or not to be determined. But one of the things that I would like to see is even outside of just Dallas, but all of our outlying cities as well, we're starting to see, well, that's just a Dallas thing. That's, we're not big enough for that. And conversations like that, when in reality, I think that's a misnomer because partnerships can take place anywhere at any time. And so I know that you've been working a lot with other cities that are outside of our DFW market specifically, but within the DFW area, if somebody here wanted to do something, I mean, do we have some people here that are outside of the Dallas city limits? Okay. So if they were to want to engage with their particular city to kind of partner with doing something like what you've done, or extend DIA over into another part of the DFW market, is that something that, what would you advise them from that perspective, like a mentor?
We've talked to lots of cities regionally, and outside the region about what we're doing, how we did it, how we get started, and obviously what they're doing and what roadblocks they may have hit. We want cities to be able to move faster. The goal is that we take, there are cities that are ahead of Dallas that really mentored me up, and it's so appreciative, and that's how I've been in industries where there was not that level of collaboration, so it's been extremely heartening to see how well cities are working together. I think the goal ultimately is a regional approach, a state approach, national standards, are really buried right now. If we think about the data privacy and sharing and ownership and all those things, until there's standards in place, we're all kind of ships in the wind, right? So those conversations are really necessary, and certainly are always open to talking to other cities and seeing how we can make that work. Who's the kind of ownership entity, regionally, and there's a number of folks that could play that role. We again just needed to focus execution-wise on the city of Dallas to start, but the goal is always to do that, and I think that helps in procurement too. Honestly, if you can do regional level procurements, that helps the smaller cities too, that need some bandwidth and assistance to get these things done. But I think regionally it helps both financially, it helps from a human capital perspective, and it allows for those standards. Because I would say, as a citizen, I don't care if I've crossed from Dallas to Tarrant County. I want the street lights to work. I want to know that the public safety organizations have the ability to talk to each other. So having those cross systems are really important also.
And I think that comes back to the topic of using a PPP type of a relationship in order to drive IoT adoption. So whenever we were in conversations with government for years around how do we connect this, how do we connect that, and it always comes back to what's the business case. And I think that's where a lot of the proof of concepts with the Living Lab, where you've kind of proven out a couple of those things. So whenever you say that you're involved in 20 different areas of the government, kind of what is that? If there's that missing device that somebody in the audience could get inspired today and say, hey, that's me. I'm the smart lighting guy. I'm, the smart street sign person, whatever that might be. Is there something that's a very hot topic that we're missing, or a hot button that we're missing that you could tell us about?
Well, I can't speak directly for the city, but I think some of the things that we would really recommend to be looked at are, so many of these projects can accomplish multiple use cases in a single investment. Light poles are the easiest example to use. So if I can say to the real estate department, these light poles can house small cells, for example, or Wi-Fi hotspots, and you don't have to create a Christmas tree effect, and you could at least do agreements with 4 carriers and not one, because this light pole has that ability to do so. Or maybe you have to continue to figure out that balance from that perspective. If I say to the police department, the cameras are embedded, and not only that, but we have gunshot detection in there. So a light pole can affect the streets department and public works. It can affect real estate, economic development, and public safety, DPD, in the same investment. So the whole goal is how do we maximize that budget. When we talk about how the financial modeling and how you get it done, what we've seen, what our hypothesis is we really need to start looking at a portfolio or a closed loop model where you do 5 projects in tandem and they pay for each other, essentially, whether that's through performance-based, whether that's through additional revenue opportunities. Those kiosks are a great example, so the revenue from those can help pay for and reinvest in other smart city technologies. To circle back to you, so part of what we're doing here is looking at what would a scaled financial model look like for some of these solutions, how are other cities paying for them. And I think a good example is to look at San Diego. They recently moved forward on this $65 million IoT deployment. and they're not coming out of pocket for anything. So the city's paying no CapEx. And a lot of that, so I immediately called their deputy COO who's over that, and I said, how did you do it? Tell me right now. I want to know right now, how did you do it? And he just talked about how that financial model was put into play, and it was new, and there's a number of different mechanisms, but that's where they needed to get to be able to do it quickly, because our goal is how do we do things like this that don't impact the budget for potholes, for example, right? So if we can find ways to get this done without taking from the operating budget, potholes, police officers, top of the priority, right? And we don't want to make the ask to pull from that, even to the extent that we can. So that's the goal is to find ways that there's very low to no CapEx to get it started.
So a quick question, just for where my mind's going. If there's not a CapEx, is there an RFP?
Yeah, there's still going to be an RFP.
So I know some people are like, oh, there's no RFP. There's still going to be an RFP process, but it allows you to come with a more fully baked solution, as you said, where you're covering multiple different things. I love the fact that it's not out of pocket, because that's one of the biggest things is whenever you're looking at a CapEx versus an OpEx. And whenever you look at CapEx, a lot of people, they don't have it. They immediately say, oh, I don't have that in my budget. I don't have that in my budget. But it shuts down the conversation to what I believe is a more important conversation, which is around the OpEx. And so if you don't have a CapEx, but you can show the operational expense over time, that you're going to decrease over here and over to increase over here, and it balances out. However, quality of life increases tenfold, then why wouldn't you do it? And so what are some of the things that you're involved with right now, like in the lab? Is the lab open for touring? And tell us a little bit about the lab itself, because that's the R&D part is always fascinating to me.
Yeah, for sure. So we have the tricky thing with some smart cities pieces is that they're very low visibility, right? So you're not always going to immediately notice what's been put into place. So we have, again, it's with 9 different projects. On the street, the most obvious one is the kiosk, right? And the whole goal of that is how do we test new methods of citizen engagement and delivering information. And so there's things like wayfinding, there's points of interest. What I really love that they added in is public services. So if I need to find a government building, if I've come down here to do a birth certificate or do something like that, but now I'm lost. Now that I'm down here, I can find where that building is and be sent to public facilities. There's also a selfie function, which is incredibly popular, which is not surprising in general, but especially because this is such a heavy tourist area. I think that's been fun and engaging for folks that are visiting Dallas. We have environmental sensors on the building. They're solar powered, so we can take them anywhere. And one thing that I'm talking about doing is putting it in a flatbed, and you can drive around southern Dallas, for example, or areas where we know there's high childhood asthma, and get some live readings because you don't need that connection point. It's got cellular connectivity. We do things like that. The cool thing with the environmental sensor specifically is it gets really granular on particulate matter. So when we think about public health impacts and ways that we can apply that data, that's really exciting to us. We've got intelligent street lighting, but obviously LED saves energy and money, but we also have the intelligent controls, so it'll tell the city when a light is out. The city can control the lighting levels remotely. And that's, so an example of how that's already kind of has a cool anecdote is there's also 6 other nodes outside of the West End we're testing in different districts. And there's one in Southern Dallas, I think it's by Ledbetter Station, but it detected a transformer that blew, an outage before anyone had called it in because that light went out and they were able to determine it wasn't the bulb or the light casing, it was the actual power source. So they were able, that saves a ton of time and got that power back up quickly. So that's anecdotal, obviously, in terms of how much that saved, but we know that was an automatic detection of that outage. We have smart parking, so we're able to test both the PUC system and that physical ingress and egress, but also there's intelligent nodes on 4 of the streetlights, and so the cameras have the analytical capability to also test occupancy and improve that out for parking. We have pedestrian beacons, and one of my favorite things to talk about in terms of how that data is being used down here for small businesses is we have this pedestrian counting. We're able to share that with the business association, and they can see where pedestrian traffic spikes, and sometimes it has been times that are not intuitive. It's not necessarily at lunch, beginning of the day, end of the day. There's a couple days of the week where between 2 and 3 p.m. there's a big spike. My guess is that's when classes at El Centro make it out. But we see that spike and share with businesses, and some of them have adjusted their appetite, their happy hour pricing and to try and capture some of that foot traffic. And we know the area is livening up. They're sharing revenue data. And so we know that businesses down here sharing data have seen a 20% revenue increase year over year for 17 over 16. Also looking at increased pedestrian traffic, we know helps with public safety in addition to better lighting. So crime in the West End year over year went down 7%. And in the fourth quarter, it was a much higher drop. I can't remember off the top of my head. But so that's an example of how we're looking at how does this data apply across different problems that we're looking to solve, whether it's energy, public safety, economic development. So all of those are being used in tandem.
So there's one thing I want to go back to because it really stood out to me just now. Whenever the restaurants shared their revenue actually increased. Now, how interesting is that? Isn't that counterintuitive? You're a private company. Don't share anything, right? Which I just had this conversation yesterday. But isn't it fascinating what the data tells us that's counterintuitive to our natural thinking? And so with that, it kind of goes to show the power of the data that's behind what's coming off of these sensors that can sometimes kind of mess with our mind because it's the way that we think or the way that we've grown up or what we've known all of our life. And so I love the fact that being transparent actually increases what comes on the other side of that. So with the data specifically, data is power. I personally, way back there, I used to get looked at like I was crazy because I said data was the next currency. But this was before analytics, so people thought I was nuts. And now everybody's going, data's the next currency. And I'm going, yeah, I've known that for a long time. So, and it really wasn't that there's anything intrinsically valuable about just the data, but it's the analytics that go with the data that becomes a story. And I think that everything becomes more powerful with the story. So whenever we look at IoT adoption within the city and we're driving all these different projects, I think that it's somewhat, we'd be remiss not to look at the story and just only look at what the sensor is. So it's an environmental sensor, okay? But you mentioned just a minute ago, no, we're going to put this on a flatbed and we're going to go to South Dallas and we're going to look at what does this tell us about these asthmatic attacks? That's huge because that only comes from sensors, that only comes from data. That doesn't come from your mom going, yeah, there's their asthma attack. And then you go, because it might not be an asthma attack. Right? So we can misdiagnose without proper data to go with that. So the data that you're collecting, what would you say is been the aha moment for you? Because to me, just now, it was the restaurant for them sharing their revenue numbers. What has it been for you?
Oh boy. So I think that to me that one has been the most compelling. Certainly when I'm talking to people, and in smart cities, people immediately think of the technology first, and it's really again about how do you improve quality of life and how do you improve things within a city. And so that example to me really personalizes what this impact is and how it affects people and small businesses in their daily lives and operations. I think, and again, I think I've talked about a lot of them already, so I used them up. But the node that's in the other district that was able to report that outage, I think stuff like that can really show what is the overall impact, so that these neighborhoods that could have been without power for days, are back in power within hours. I think that's critical because what we know, and our second phase is focused on South and Southern Dallas, and we look at different problems and use cases related to equity, access to upward mobility, access to services and amenities, digital divide, things like that. And so when we think about, and I had a conversation with some folks down there last week, and I said, I want the public safety data, and I'm going to pull that because I want to understand where the hotspots are so we can work together and target efforts. I said, but where qualitative data is so critical, because I know for a lot of y'all, this crime goes unreported, either because you don't trust that there's community relations issues, they just don't think that they think it's going to take so long, or they've gotten used to it, so it's not a big deal. For immigrant populations, there's some areas in Dallas that have immigrant populations, and they won't report crime because they're afraid it's going to lead to ICE. And so we need to know what data is not in there, and that's where the community engagement really comes in. But just to stress the importance, not just of the quantitative, but the qualitative data is really critical.
think that's huge because it takes the stress off of people. Because now I no longer have to worry about being exposed, essentially doing it all for me. And so I think that's a huge point to come out. So tell us what's coming with the I know that is South Dallas a big focus point for you guys, and if so, what are you looking to bring about?
So phase 2 was always going to be in Southern Dallas, and so we in the planning efforts, we thought, okay, do we look around and create another living lab, like another compressed area where we do this, and just because of the density, honestly, in Southern Dallas, or the lack of density, we realized that probably what was going to make more sense is to test different solutions in different parts. And some may overlap, so we may have concurrent projects, but we know that we're looking at public safety, digital divide, and mobility. And again, mobility we look at in different pieces. So it's social mobility, it's traditional point A to point B, and it's in-service delivery. So we're looking at we're working with other partners that already have kind of mobile access. So if ER visits are particularly high in the primary method of healthcare for a community, working with Parkland and Children's and Methodist and Baylor Scott and White to bring their mobile units in. They're already doing so all over the city, but let's coordinate. So working with UNT Dallas about their mobile farmers markets. So maybe we create a method in which we have multiple services delivered to the same communities on the same days. So it's more convenient to take care of your primary care, your healthy food. We're working on a digital divide initiative with local learning labs that have the high-powered Wi-Fi on board so kids can do their homework in the evening when other areas are unavailable. So these are all things. These are not in stone, so I can't promise, but those are some of the ideas that we're working through right now.
So with that, we've got just a little bit of time for Q&A, so I want to make sure that we touch on the topics that you care about and what you came to hear about today. So I might not have asked the right question yet. So what questions do we have in our audience? Yes, sir.
Is anything that you guys are doing been conveyed to Amazon and the city's pitch to them about another HQ2 wire?
I don't know for sure, but I know that I provided some summary language. Innovation is so critical there that I'm sure there was at least some overall focus on that, but I don't know for sure.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you participate with meeting of the minds?
I haven't to this point. I do. I need to take that and reconnect that. Thank you.
Good question. Yes, sir.
You mentioned that one of the technology you're working on is a bullet that's being diagnosed. The light bulb that detects bullets fired. So is there any initiative going on moving into schools and something like all this shooting going on around the schools? Is there any, I know you're focused on the cities, but is there another version of having schools out?
That's a great question. We haven't directly explored that, but obviously I know that there's a lot of different strategies that school districts are looking at around that. So we haven't directly, but certainly have some ideas that we could share.
Yes,
Are
ma'am.
there any applications that you have a need for that you have another technology or solution to resolve?
So that's a good question. So something that we haven't dove into to this point is blockchain. We haven't incorporated that yet, so that's a plan I'd love to look at. We are the public safety piece to me has been challenging, not because solutions don't exist, but with our ability from a scope perspective, a lot of public safety solutions. Really, I don't know that we can truly test unless they're at a scale that probably we can't do. So if there's kind of micro, level public safety things that you hear about, we're looking at things like the sensors on the lighting and the video analytics and things like that. But that would be something as well.
What else?
Are you doing any testing with traffic lights, with the traffic patterns that are in the area?
So the city is doing that with their ITS system they're putting in. So we keep up with what that project is doing and the progress on it, but we haven't been directly doing that since it's already revenue, and similar with the big data portal. So, the city was operating off of about 200 different enterprise software systems within the city, and brought in an IBM platform to unify those and get to that single version of the truth, so that automated analytics and storytelling is a daily part of city operations.
So I do work for the city, and internally it's a nightmare to work with our procurement system, but if you are small, one of the first things you could probably do, get signed on and registered as a vendor too, because that's going to cut out a lot of crap when you find an RFP you want to be a part of. It's painful, but doing that up front is much better than trying to do it when you're trying to put together the best response to an RFP.
So that's a great point, thank you for that. So whenever you say register as a vendor before looking at RFPs, at what point or what stage? So if you're a startup and you don't even have an LLC, you don't have a C Corp or anything, but you have an idea and you have a proof of concept. But before you do your formal organization, or is it post-organization, fully funded companies, what would you recommend from a vendor perspective? When is the right time for that?
So I think what the best way to handle that is to look at what's required on the vendor registration site for the city and see, do I have different materials, because they're going to ask for a lot of documentation. Maybe there's someone you can partner with that you can subcontract up to, especially because there are different kinds of requirements for, subcontractors and all that. So is there someone who you could work with on registering? Because then once you're, even though you can look at RFPs that are out there already, if you can regularly look on the site and see what's the city issued here, what's it issued there. If you're already in the system, you probably can really respond to it much more quickly, but be aware of what documentation you need as an entity, and do you meet those thresholds? If you don't, who can you partner with? Who can you, potentially work with who might already be registered as a vendor? Make it a partnership.
Same goes with federal too, Sam and Paige, and you don't have those numbers and you think federal might be in your future. Don't do what I did on my first one and think that was easy, because it took 3 to 7 business days to get my number and got through a panic situation. So if you're looking in there are a lot of small, the Economic Development Administration, I think has several grants that are really good fits for regional deployment and looking at innovation. It's called the RIS grant. I think the cycle is a little bit further out, but that's something I think to look at and potentially find partnership collaboration opportunities as well. So I think on the federal level, there's also some good pieces there.
So I know, yes, sir.
Speaking of the EDC, how does the DEC work with Economic Development Corporation?
Well, so the DIA is partners with the DEC, but we're separate organizations, which comes up a lot. So we obviously work closely together, but so the Downtown Dallas Inc. is the PID downtown, and we work really closely with them on projects that they're doing and getting insight from them. Are you when you say EDC, are you talking about internal to the city, or are you talking about freestanding like the chamber? I don't know that.
Not the chamber, more so.
More a chamber?
Not
a chamber. I'm not the EDC. I'm not aware of a freestanding EDC, but I may be misunderstanding the type of, or what entity.
So is DEC not an EDC?
That is a question. They're a nonprofit as well, and they're a C3, not a C6. So I would need to check with Trey or somebody here.
And also from your experience, like what is the turnaround time for RFP in Dallas?
It depends. I mean, I hear everything, and maybe I can give a little more clarity, but I know typically for a large one, it can take 18 months. Is that about accurate for a full RFP cycle if it's a larger?
I think it depends on what you mean by large. I mean, when we were redesigning our website, we tried to move pretty quickly, but yeah, it still took, 3 or 4 months, probably a total of 6 months from issuing to getting contracting. It depends on scope.
Yeah. So I think about the big data RFP is the one I was most familiar with, and I think because of modifications midway through, I think that one's 18 months, including the contracting piece.
What other questions?
So you mentioned you have particle sensors that you've placed in several locations throughout the city and going around the city. Have y'all published any of that data on sites like Weather Underground, where you can use other weather sites that have those sensors?
So we're working on, so right now we just have the one unit that's on the roof here. Obviously the city has a whole network through their Office of Environmental Quality. What we'd like to pull in all of those sources and weather track and things like that into a single version of the truth. We're working on that right now in terms of getting a dashboard visualization, interactive visualization we can have available on our website. Our quarterly reports are posted on the website, which have some summary data, but the goal is to have all of the raw data on the Dallas Open Data Portal from a visualization standpoint, to have it available and linked on our website.
Yeah, have you got any feedback from new potential retailers down here and how that would affect their choice to come? I know they're trying to bring in some new life that comes to restaurants and other things.
No, I mean, I think the real estate community is really gung-ho, obviously, because the innovation piece is an attraction point for creative talent. And so the foot traffic data, I think, has been helpful and has been utilized by leasing agents. We often will come and be part of those tours and speak to potential clients, and have had a couple of restaurants open in the last 6 months as well. So I think that the culture of innovation has been an attraction point, and certainly a point that's been utilized in this city.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Do you have a process where you can scan all the federal RFPs to capture the opportunities in this area that you can share?
I search manually. If anyone has a better aggregator, I would love to know. So I try a couple of times a month to scan, whether it's COG regionally, some of the federal agencies that I know that we tend to have a closer fit with, I'll scan those. Give me your card, and if I find an aggregator, I'll let you know, but right now I'm just kind of manually scanning.
Do you happen to do that?
No, but I have somebody who does.
Perfect.
I know a guy.
That's what I like to hear. I like to hear that. So help us with from a funding perspective. That's always top of mind of startups and kind of growing your legs, if you will, and kind of getting started. Is there anything that the DIA or organizations like yours that they can go to learn more about how do we get funding? Are there grants available that you're aware of? Is that something that you guys work with at all?
We do, and I think so personally for DIA, because we're a nonprofit, I think we're eligible for some funding, obviously, that a startup for-profit would maybe not be. So we'll go to, whether it's private foundation arms, so we go to corporations, foundation arms, and apply for grants through those channels. We also received a grant from the United Way in 2016. It was a social innovation grant. It was the first they were given. So we focus more on the foundation side, or kind of the corporate foundation side. From that funding perspective, on the private sector side, I wish Trey was on stage with me, because he's got a better sense of that. I really focus so heavily on the nonprofit funding.
And there are corporate innovation tracks that are going on, or sessions going on this week. So I just wanted to ask the question from a nonprofit perspective. So the for-profits, you just got to do it traditional ways. But it's always interesting to get a different perspective of the way different organizations they operate throughout the city, and how they are part of the overall ecosystem. So one of the things that you mentioned earlier, partnering with somebody, that's a really, really big key to me. And so how many times, well, you don't have to answer this because I'm sure it happens frequently, somebody building what they think is the right thing, they bring it in only to find out, well, that's not compatible with what we're trying to interface with. So whenever you look at ecosystem from a city infrastructure perspective, is there guidance from your perspective of how to help them understand platforms, ways that lessens the burden on them whenever they get ready for a deployment or try to respond to an RFP? Because it could be the best solution in the world, but if it doesn't plug into the rest of the ecosystem, it might not be the best fit. So,
I think you know, and this has surprised me, were any of you involved or are you involved in kind of the enterprise software side? Have been in the past? So my first tech client was SAP when they launched their business intelligence platform, and SAP didn't do this, but a lot of competitors were still doing really heterogeneous systems where they didn't work, they weren't interoperable with anything else, and it took a while for them to realize that that just wasn't going to work anymore, right? And they had to create interoperable, homogeneous systems. And what's interesting is cycling into these analytics platforms and some of those collection points, I'm seeing some companies still creating something where you have to utilize their piece before it gets pushed out. And my message to them has been, the city already chose that, and they're not going to invest millions of dollars into a separate segmented system and then pull it in through APIs that have to be built. So I think obviously the interoperability in general is critical. I think if you can pre-develop APIs, that gives you a massive leg up. A lot of stuff we're manually building right now, I think that's very attractive as well. I think compatibility with, for cities particularly, figure out what their open data system is. Like the majority are on Socrata, and I think if that API can be pulled in immediately, I think that's really attractive as well. So those are just some pieces there.
Excellent. So, any parting thoughts?
I think that smart cities is a term that gets thrown around a whole lot, but I do think it has the ability to change lives. And I think in a lot of ways you won't see it or notice it necessarily, but an example is in Sweden. When I was there, they said, we've got an entire sanitation system that's smart and this and that and the other. And they said, did you notice when you've ever smelled any garbage since you've been here? And I thought about it and I didn't at all. But it's something, there's quality of life pieces for smart cities that you wouldn't immediately notice, but I think it has the ability to touch everyone. I think it has the ability to enable social problems to be solved. And so I think if we can really make sure and remember holistically that this is about community and this is about technology as an enablement of that, I think that there's so much that can be accomplished. And I just feel extraordinarily lucky to be working in this space right now. I appreciate y'all being here.
Excellent. So with that, how did they find out about DIA? How did they find out about Jennifer Sanders? Tell us where they can find you and your organization.
So obviously our website, DallasInnovationAlliance.com. All my contact information is on there as well. We have a newsletter you can sign up for that we try and do monthly. We don't spam you, but we'll try and get you updates there. We have committees, again, STEM and data are the ones that are established right now. And those meet once a month. That's another way to get involved. Find out about me, I guess you Google me, I don't know.
No, don't Google. LinkedIn.
Yes, LinkedIn would be that. There's also a DIA page on LinkedIn to follow. You can follow as well.
Excellent. So I want to say thank you to Jennifer for taking her time out of her day to come and speak to us and give us some information and insights. Hopefully it was helpful. And I see some head nodding, so that's a good thing. And just want to give her a round of applause and thank you for her time.